Have you ever felt like your own mind is working against you? You set a goal, but some invisible force just pulls you right back into old habits. You make a big decision, and a week later you're wondering, what was I thinking? Well, what if I told you this isn't really your fault? That there's a hidden architect in your brain running on ancient software that hasn't quite kept up with our modern world. And this isn't about willpower or intelligence. Some of the smartest people on Earth are just as vulnerable to these glitches in our thinking. These glitches are called cognitive biases, and they're basically systematic errors that affect almost every decision we make. Think of them like optical illusions, but for your mind. They're shortcuts the brain uses to make decisions faster. These shortcuts were incredibly useful for our ancestors. When you're trying to survive a world with scarce resources and constant danger, you don't have time to analyze every rustle in the grass. You need to act fast. Your brain evolved to save energy by creating these mental shortcuts. The problem is, the world has changed, but our brains are still running the same software. The same shortcuts that kept our ancestors safe on the savannah can now cause us to make some truly irrational decisions. In the boardroom, in our relationships, and with our money. These biases are like invisible scripts running our lives. And today, we're going to make them visible. We're going to expose 3 of the most powerful biases that are secretly shaping your reality. So let's start with a question. Have you ever forced yourself to finish a terrible movie just because you were already an hour in? Or maybe you've kept pouring money into a failing project, thinking, I can't stop now. I've invested too much. If that sounds familiar, you've met the sunk cost fallacy. This bias is our tendency to stick with something not because it's a good idea, but because of what we've already put into it. The time, the money, or the effort we've spent becomes the reason to keep going, even when logic is screaming at us to cut our losses and walk away. Just look at the story of the Concorde supersonic jet. From the very beginning, the project was bleeding money, and it was obvious it would never be commercially successful. The British and French governments knew this, but for decades, they kept pouring billions into it. Why? Because they had already spent billions. To stop would be admitting that all that money was just gone. The money they'd already spent, the sunk cost, kept dictating their future decisions. It was a multi-billion-dollar version of you forcing down a meal you don't even like, just because you paid for it. Oh, why do our brains do this? It's tied to an ancient survival instinct about managing resources. For our ancestors, giving up on a hunt or abandoning a half-built shelter could literally be a death sentence. Persistence paid off. The rule was, don't be wasteful. But in our world of abundance and rapid change, this instinct often traps us. It keeps us in jobs we can't stand, relationships that are broken, and projects that are going nowhere. We get so fixated on not wasting what we've already spent that we waste something way more valuable, our future. The smart move is always to look at a situation based on its future potential, regardless of what you've already invested. But our brain, stuck on its old programming, doesn't want you to know that. All right, the next mental glitch is maybe the most common and dangerous of all, confirmation bias. This is our natural tendency to look for and favor information that confirms what we already believe. It's not that we're trying to be ignorant. It's just that our brain is trying to be efficient. It takes a lot of mental energy to consider a new, conflicting idea. But finding evidence that we're right, that feels good. It actually gives us a little dopamine hit, like winning an argument. Think about how you get your news. When a big issue comes up, do you look for a variety of sources from all sides? Or do you flip to the channel or scroll to the accounts that you know will agree with you? That's confirmation bias creating a filter bubble, an echo chamber, where your own beliefs just get reflected back at you, getting stronger with every echo. That there's a fascinating, and honestly, a little alarming, study from Stanford that shows this perfectly. Researchers gathered 2 groups, people who supported capital punishment and people who opposed it. They gave both groups 2 made-up studies to read. One study had data showing capital punishment works to deter crime, and the other had data showing it doesn't. So what happened? Well, both groups thought the study that supported their own view was brilliant and credible, and they both thought the one that contradicted their view was totally flawed. But here's the crazy part. After seeing evidence from both sides, you'd think their opinions might soften a bit. Nope, the opposite happened. Both groups said their original beliefs were now even stronger. They just grabbed onto the evidence that confirmed their views and threw the rest out. This bias is the root of so much polarization. It's why facts so often fail to change people's minds. Your brain isn't built to be a scientist, carefully weighing all the evidence. It's built to be a lawyer, making the best possible case for what it already believes. It wants to protect your worldview, because a challenge to your beliefs can feel like a threat. This mental shortcut, which was once useful for keeping a tribe unified, now stops us from learning, growing, and finding any common ground. The last bias we need to talk about is social reinforcement, which you might know as the bandwagon effect or groupthink. This is that deep-seated urge to believe or do something just because everyone else is. And evolutionarily, it makes total sense. If you stuck with your tribe, you were safe. You had food. If you got cast out, it was basically a death sentence. So we developed a powerful instinct. Go with the flow. Don't cause trouble. Just agree. This instinct is so strong it can lead groups of smart, well-meaning people to make horrible decisions. The classic case is the 1986 Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. The night before the launch, engineers who built the rocket boosters were sounding the alarm. The cold weather forecast was way outside the safety range for the O-rings, a critical part. They argued passionately to delay the launch, but they were up against massive pressure from NASA officials, who wanted to stick to the schedule. The desire for everyone to just agree and move forward became overwhelming. The engineers' warnings were silenced and overruled. The group convinced itself the risk was fine. The meeting ended with the decision to launch. The next day, the Challenger broke apart 73 seconds after liftoff, killing all 7 astronauts. The cause? The O-rings the engineers had warned about. This is the dark side of social reinforcement. The desire to just get along can completely shut down critical thinking. You've probably seen a smaller version of this in your own life. Have you ever been in a meeting and had doubts about a plan, but you stayed quiet because everyone else seemed so on board? You just figure, hey, if nobody else is saying anything, I must be wrong. But a lot of the time, everyone else is thinking the exact same thing, all caught in the same cycle of silence. That's called pluralistic ignorance, and it's a huge part of groupthink. Our brain whispers that fitting in is the most important thing. It tells us it's safer to be wrong with everyone else than to be right all by yourself. And that ancient script, designed to keep us safe in a small tribe, can now blind us to the truth. We've just uncovered 3 of the powerful ways your mind can work against you. If you're finding this useful and want to keep learning how to master your own thinking, take a second to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We're always digging into the hidden forces that control our lives. So it sounds a little grim, right? We're all walking around with this buggy, ancient software in our heads. But here's the most important thing your brain doesn't want you to know. Just being aware of these biases is the antidote. You can't just wish them away. They're baked into our mental hardware. But you can learn to spot them. And once you see them in action, you can start to consciously steer around them. So, how do we actually do that? First, just accept it. You are biased. I am. You are. Everyone is. Admitting that is the first and most important step. It's about having some intellectual humility. Second, go out of your way to find different perspectives. If you believe something, make it a real habit to listen to the smartest arguments against it. Follow people you disagree with. Read things that challenge you. Don't just ask, what confirms my belief? Instead, ask, what could prove me wrong? This is how you short-circuit confirmation bias. And third, slow down your decision-making. Our biases love it when we're rushed, tired, or stressed. So for big decisions, step back. Make a simple list of pros and cons. Before you sink more time or money into something, ask yourself, knowing what I know right now, if I were starting fresh today, would I still do this? That simple question helps you escape the sunk cost trap. In a group, be the one who encourages a different opinion. Ask, what are we all missing here? Or even appoint someone to play devil's advocate. Look, your brain isn't your enemy. It's an incredible survival machine, but it's working with an old instruction manual. It's built to value speed over truth, a trade-off that's getting more and more costly in our modern world. The sunk cost fallacy, confirmation bias, groupthink. These aren't personal flaws. They're just features of being human. But they don't have to be your destiny. By understanding how these hidden forces work, you can start to rewrite the script. You can challenge your own echo chamber. You can learn to walk away from a bad investment. And you can be the one who speaks up in a silent room. This isn't a one-time fix. It's a lifelong practice of questioning yourself. It's about choosing conscious thought over automatic reaction. Because the real secret your brain doesn't want you to know is that you have the power to override its old programming. And when you do that, you can make smarter, better, and more deliberate decisions for the rest of your life.